John Krasinski directs and stars in A Quiet Place. The film co-stars his real-life wife, Emily Blunt. This movie is about a post-apocalyptic future in which humanity is threatened by some vicious monsters, and it requires everybody to remain absolutely quiet.
See, that's too loud. You just gotta do this. Shh, too loud. Like that.
So Lenny, I have to say that this movie was a pleasant surprise for me, as far as horror films go. This was a nice breath of fresh air because it was a nice character study. And a lot of horror movies, they're just like jump scares, throwing you into the action. But this movie took its time, and I really liked that.
Right, I thought it was very artful in the way they created a world in which you had to combat these aliens without sound. It takes a lot to create a world like that. You have to put a lot of thought into it. No, it's very creative, and I know we'll get into that later.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
As far as being surprised, everyone told me this movie was a hit, so I kind of went in there with those expectations, and I was satisfied for sure.
Great, all right.
So what this movie really hangs its hat on is sound, right? Or lack thereof. I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it. I mean, when I think of this movie and how it builds suspense, I think of how, everything's quiet, and then they add these little sounds that add to the morose tone and suspense. For example, at the very beginning, people tiptoeing through the store. Mm-hmm. The fact that little boy almost knocks over the shuttle, and his little sister doesn't just catch it, she dives for it as if like their lives depend on it, which it obviously does.
Yeah, this is a silent film which makes any little sound that you hear just that much more impactful. This is a movie that should be very proud of its sound editing and sound mixing, and I wouldn't be surprised if it received some Oscar nominations for either one of those categories.
Yeah, it was that good. I found myself in the theater, even at the very beginning, being careful on how I picked up my beverage, drank it with the sounds I was making, and then placing it back in the cup holder.
Oh yeah.
I mean, really, it was a weird phenomenon. I didn't even noticing I was doing that.
Right. It was like me and the chips. I ordered some chips and queso, and I was just like slowly eating and chewing on the chips because it was very oddly quiet. And it almost seemed like the movie created like an atmosphere in the entire movie theater.
Right. One thing they talk about in creative writing or in good screenplay writing is that you want to understand that you can create silence. It seems like it's paradoxical, but you really can. So, for example, what this movie does is it really has the rustling of the leaves. I mean, how often do we notice that when we're walking, right?
Little things, absolutely. Or when they're walking on the sand barefoot, for example.
You can hear their footfalls.
Absolutely.
Little things like that.
Yeah.
And again, it's masterful. It's not something they just, threw together, for sure.
And so to add on one more example of how sound is masterfully used in this movie, a lot of the times this family is obviously trying to remain very quiet so that these monsters can't hear them, right? And so there's this one scene where the John Krasinski character is walking with his little boy, and they're obviously, being very careful walking, and then all of a sudden they run into this old man in the middle of the forest.
Oh, the bitter beer face guy.
Yeah. And then, John Krasinski kind of looks at him and goes like this, as if to say, don't make any sound, because I think he notices that the old man is kind of like experiencing some trauma.
Yeah, exactly. His wife just, is on the ground all cut
is on
up
the ground. And so at that moment, you know that this old man is about to yell. And when he does, all of a sudden there's a close-up to Krasinski, hugging his boy, picking him up, and then the camera kind of like feels kind of claustrophobic as it, closes in on them. And then he starts to run with his kid, and the musical score all of a sudden elevates, and it gets really loud, and there's like a thundering, sound, so those moments are much more impactful because there's a lack of sound, for the longest time.
One of the things that we noticed too was how there was a very retro feel to the reveal of the monster.
That's right.
It's not just the monsters were there or they just threw them out for you guys to see.
Yeah.
You first see them going through the forest. You know, it's really fast. You can't see their bodies, right? But you know they're there. Okay, then there's that one scene where it takes the little boy at the end of the bridge.
Right.
Okay, and it's just a flash.
Yeah, and you don't know when it's coming because for the longest time they're hidden, you know?
And that's what's so good about classic horror movies. They knew how to build it up like that. And for a while, I gave up on horror movies. And, you know, it's even debatable as to whether this even is a horror movie or is it a thriller, right? But the point is, though, they knew how to build suspense and keep you on the end of your seat.
And I firmly believe that Hitchcock, man, there's a reason why they deemed him the master of suspense. Spielberg knew this with Jaws. You know, thank God that darn shark didn't work on the set because, you know, you hardly saw the shark, and that's what made Jaws great. And then M. Night Shyamalan with like The Sixth Sense and Signs. You know, Signs is another alien movie where you hardly see those aliens, and that's what makes that movie great. So you know, that's something to definitely appreciate about this movie is how you don't really see those monsters very often.
You know, you mentioned Signs, and you know that's kind of a nice segue into talking about this alien. Okay, I thought that the alien was pretty derivative.
Okay.
You know, of a lot of these movies, you know, Signs, you know, Tremors, and of course, the first thing I thought of was Stranger Things with the face all.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a callback to Stranger. You know, it reminded me also of the aliens from Resident Evil.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Kind of like,
that's right. Yeah, it's kind of a thing.
Definitely not in a very original looking, you know, alien. How did you feel about the CGI with the alien?
Nah, it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, it was fine.
I think because this movie was more than just the alien, you know, it was really about the characters and obviously family. Right. So when I think about the characters, I think of Emily Blunt's character.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to me, her acting performance is Oscar worthy.
She outshines Krasinski. She really does.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've never had to deliver a baby, you know, but
and hopefully you'll never have to.
Hopefully I won't ever have to, you know. I do have 2 children, but there were times I did look away. But anyway, my whole point is she brought it to the screen. You know, just everything she did. You think about it, you know, she had that.
That was tough. That was impressive.
I mean, how do you act having a hole in your foot? Yeah, and then
not being able to make a sound.
Yes, can you imagine that?
And you're in labor.
You know, all the moms out there were like, "Oh my goodness, how is she doing that?" You know, like either props to you, girl, or they were like, it's either that or oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, you know, and in some interviews that I've seen with Krasinski, he spoke about you know, how they were thoroughly impressed, like on the set while they were filming, thoroughly impressed with how easily Blunt was able to like transition into those emotions, and then all of a sudden, you know, they would stop filming and she would be like, "Where's the food? I'm hungry," you know, like just like that.
Yeah,
you know?
That's an actress. That's a grade A actress.
Yeah, but I mean,
when she was in the tub and trying to hold it in, I felt that. I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
You know, how do you do that?
Definitely, yeah.
Oh man, and then when she finally let out that scream, that oh my gosh.
That cathartic moment where finally she's able to let it go. Like, oh yeah. Yeah, it was exhausting watching her.
Yeah, but no, easily the best performance for me.
In the movie, for sure. But I have to say that Millicent Simmons definitely does some good work here. She plays the daughter of Krasinski and Blunt, and she's of course deaf in real life and in the movie.
That brought a lot to the movie.
Yeah, that definitely brought a lot to the movie. But she is, you know, your teenage girl that has this internal turmoil, I guess you could say, and she plays that very well.
You could just call it angst.
Yeah, teenage angst.
Teenage angst.
You know, she feels guilty. She feels like she's not, you know, receiving the love from her father that she thinks she deserves. And so she plays a lot of those complicated emotions pretty well, and so that's another highlight for this movie.
I mean, I really liked that thread in the movie because, you know, it's obvious that this movie's talking about family and the struggles you have of trying to keep it together, and that added another layer for me. You know?
That's the beauty of this movie.
You know, a daughter trying to, you know, win her father's love and prove herself, while you also probably have a conflicted father because you know, he may or may not hold it against her, you know, because of what happened to the little boy, you know, her little brother.
At the beginning, right.
Yeah,
which I was surprised, very surprised by the way, that opening. I didn't expect for that kid to die right off the bat. it caught me by surprise, I have to say. Like, I didn't expect, boom, death, and then, you know, like...
Yeah, I didn't really see it either coming.
Yeah.
But I think it was necessary to really set the tone of the movie.
Oh, yeah. That
And-
you can't take any risks, and you have to be very careful. Like you were saying, it sets a tone that is very unnerving and intense, but it also immediately brings up that theme of, man, parenting is difficult. And I think that that's something that this movie explores is, you know, how good are you if you can't protect your kids, you know, as a parent?
Right. And
Right.
Which makes perfect sense because Emily Blunt and John Krasinski have daughters in real life, and so they're relatively new parents. So obviously this is up their alley, and you know this has such a personal feel to it. You know, it came from their lives.
Definitely. I think that Krasinski was, you know, inspired as a new dad to tell this story, and he did a good job. I mean, this is very much about family and about, you know, your parental instincts, protecting your kids.
At all costs.
At all costs.
Now, one more theme I do want to mention here is one that might get overlooked if you're really focusing on the family aspect, which they really blow out. It's this little redemptive arc for the daughter. You know, obviously, she can be seen by most audiences as causing her little brother Noah's death, right?
Right.
But then in the end, you know, she does come back, and you know, she's got the earpiece. She figures it out. She figures out how to hurt the creatures, and then of course she amplifies it. And then of course, you know, you have Emily Blunt with the shotgun there, and so
She's the hero of the
right.
movie.
So
yeah.
they do get some measure of revenge. So I did like that about her because in a way it's showing how teenagers, they need to go through things to learn. It's kind of a very small snippet of a rite of passage for her. So overall, I really did enjoy this movie. Now, I have a buddy of mine who always says, you know, let yourself be fooled by the movie because at times I can be really critical, right? This is a movie that lent itself to poking holes in it and finding plot holes and whatnot, such as, you know, how do they have electricity still and endless supplies, and shouldn't there be a generator, and wouldn't the aliens knock that out, you know?
Right. How did they not shoot these creatures before, or know that they could hurt them with guns if they have military and stuff
Right,
like
or
that?
like, you know, if they knew that it was sound that they were sensitive to, well, why didn't you just use that against them? Stuff like that.
Yeah. There's all these little things, but you know, ultimately, do they really bother you?
They didn't, which
Yeah.
really surprised me because I can be kind of like that, like nitpicking, right? But I let myself be fooled because that's how powerful of a movie this was. You know, it really drew me in. I bought everything. I just let everything go and just enjoyed the movie.
The power of sound or the lack thereof, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might want to think, well, why the heck you're gonna have a baby that's all loud and crying, you know? And
Oh, that was one of my biggest issues, actually. Yeah.
yeah,
The whole
I can totally
pregnancy,
see that.
the whole pregnancy thing, you know, I wish they would have given a little bit of context there as to whether that was a choice, like a genuine choice that they made as a couple to have a kid, or if it just happened. Because I think that would have given me a little bit more of an area to like kind of make a judgment about that. But it did kind of annoy me.
Yeah, I knew it would annoy a lot of people, you know? When I saw the baby bump, my first reaction was,
Are you
really?
kidding? Yeah, are you
But
kidding?
then I was like, well, not only does life find a way, you know, sometimes you just gotta love and let life happen.
Right.
You know, even if
Yeah.
it means that you all could die in like 2 seconds.
Even if it means that you have to give birth absolutely quiet, which
Yeah.
is crazy. But yeah.
Yeah, with the big hole in your foot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
on top of that.
you know, so that's your qualm. Well, one of my big qualms was the friggin' ending. Hollywood loves cliffhangers, right? I don't
Yeah.
love cliffhangers. I don't know if there's going to be. I know there is talk of a sequel, but I don't know.
There is talk of a sequel.
I don't know if it's going to star them again, because I'm wondering. Now, how the heck are you going to keep, you know, amplifying the sound, shooting these things? How many rounds do you have left? To me, it kind of had this, you know, remember the Alamo feel to it, you know?
think they had in the poster in that room that there were a total of 3 creatures in the area, or 4. I can't remember. But
Okay,
it was
I didn't notice that part. But
yeah, it was unclear to me how many creatures at the end were actually approaching the house after they killed the one creature. I don't think there were very many. But
okay, well, if that's the case, then, you know, good for them, and I'd love to see them in the next movie. Hopefully, they survived.
But I really, I saw the movie twice. The first time I saw it, I loved the ending. I really did. I loved the way that it kind of like crescendos and the music along with it.
Okay.
And then you see Emily Blunt just cock the gun and she's like yeah, like let's get ready to do this.
Yeah, I thought it was cool in terms of like, you know, they get to exact some measure of revenge, sure, and Emily Blunt, who's been suffering the entire movie, finally gets, you know, some payback.
Yeah.
But I was like,
it's satisfactory.
I couldn't. It's an hour. The movie's an hour and 35 minutes, so I'm used to longer movies, right? Right. Especially watching Avengers and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So when it went roll credits, I was like, that's it. I want to see her blasting some skulls, splitting some wigs. More. You know, or I want to see them go down with like, you know, 30 creatures, something. I just wanted to see a resolution, but oh well. It wasn't to be.
Yeah, nice opening for a sequel. Anyway, as far as a grade, if I had to give it a grade, because of those little things, an A- is what I would give it here, you know, because I really like this movie. It was a well-constructed suspense thriller, and those don't come around too often, I feel, so I'm going to go with an A-.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping you want to say that because that's my grade. And let me explain my grade. Okay. I feel like I'm always giving A-. But
yeah,
I only go to watch good movies.
That's right. We've only seen good movies.
Yeah, I'm a movie snob, I guess. No. The reason is because the action junkie in me, you know, subconsciously craved more action. So that's where I would give it, it's like a B+, right? But then, you know, the person who appreciates a good story, especially one in which you show and don't tell,
and perhaps some good build-up.
Right. To me, that's like a strong A. So then when I find that compromise, that's how I get the A-.
And if you would like to see more of our thoughts on movies and trailers, check out the app Stardust. This is an app where you can just quickly upload 30-second reactions to trailers and movies, and then check out what other people think as well. Follow me at Beto Cuckoo.
And I'm at LJ5625. And let us know what you think in the comments below. Is this an Oscar-worthy movie? And if there happens to be a sequel, which direction would you like to see it go in? And if you like our reviews, guys, hit that subscribe button.